close to 3 years. So you're welcome to watch our episodes on YouTube. Again, that's STG Weekly. We're also going to be able to have demos of these games right after the panel in the gaming hall in Pacific Ballroom C. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and yield the floor to Brooks Bishop, and he'll go ahead and show you a trailer for his game, for their game, Creaky Lantern's game, Aeternum.
Aeternum, a game of, I think, obvious influences.
Speaking like.
And that was originally released nearly 2 years ago on the Xbox Live Indie Games platform, and almost a year after that, PC release with extra content and extra stage.
Yeah, and there's a free copy to the best question, by the way. Yeah.
So I am Brooks Bishop. I was the developer, programmer, artist. We had another friend, Nate Graves, who wrote the dialogue and the scenario, and Jesse did all the music. So
Yeah.
the track on there was a remix of the final boss theme by Viking Guitar
And Stenage
and Stenage.
from Metroid Metal.
Yep. So, why would I make a bullet hell? Well, because back when I started, originally I wasn't going to. That's not what I was starting originally with my intention. But watching a lot of Touhou, just videos, and I thought, wow, this is just beautiful. Like, gameplay is cool, but just watching it, all the patterns and colors, and along with the music and everything, and I thought that would be really fun, trying to figure out how to do that and do it for myself. So I thought it'd be fun to do it for myself. And besides that, just what kind of math goes into that, I thought would be interesting too, because I'm a big math buff. And along with that, I thought that a bullet hell would be kind of a simple project to use as a stepping stone as to further as a game development career. Because they're relatively simple as far as games go, even as far as shmups go, because you just have bullets and you've got characters and you're just shooting. Not much to it when you think about it. You can tell obvious influences, Touhou, but I was also playing a lot of Trouble Witches and Death Smiles, which is where the horizontal aspect came in. And also because you'll see, we were going for the Xbox as a platform, because at this time, Xbox Live Indie Games was something that was kind of amazing as far as the development world was going. Because it was a platform on the Xbox, which is a big platform for games.
Yeah, it's a huge market.
And Microsoft had opened up this platform for anyone. And all you had to do was $100 for a year to buy into the system, and you could basically release whatever you want. As long as it was a game and it conformed to a few simple rules, you could publish it, and all you had to do was go through just a peer review. So it was really easy, and it was nice because just the development as a platform was amazing as well.
It also had a really awesome community behind it.
Yeah.
There's so many people willing to help and
Yeah.
willing to just do whatever they can to help you get your game up and going.
Exactly, because it was a peer review process to get on the Xbox Live Indie Games platform, then you basically knew all the other developers. So there was this really cool community of dealing with them at the same time. So, for Aeternum, I decided on the aesthetics, kind of based on what I could do. And so this is my art. I did this. I decided, okay, I'm passable as an artist. I can do that. I'm a little better with pixel art. Unfortunately, he's not animating, but I can do pixel art and I can animate pixel art, which I think is important. So that's why I decided I wanted to do an aesthetic that combined kind of the high definition visuals, because we were going for the Xbox, so HD is something that I thought would be, beneficial to shoot for, but at the same time kind of pare back on the actual gameplay visuals, because pixel art is what I can do. So I thought that would be a really interesting style. And along with that, what I wanted to do was match the music style to the visuals. So what I instructed Jesse to do was chip pop.
Yeah.
So I wanted to combine, pop music to kind of go with the kind of cutesy visuals, but also chip tunes to match the pixel art style. So Jesse can talk about that.
I've been working in chiptunes for about a decade up to this point. All sorts of various hardware and software, avenues, but really hadn't ever really streamlined any one project. Brooks and I were buddies, and he basically instructed me, he's like, hey, we need to come up with pop anthems that will, that are chiptune but yet rock at the same time. So it's almost like, there's that generation of gaming that's like the 2.5D of gaming. So we're trying to come up with the same idea with music. It's like the 2.5D of music. So it's chiptune basic stuff, but the backing is all, acoustic drums and acoustic strings and stuff like that, as far as, the orchestra stuff goes. But one thing that we did is we went and we looked at all the games that are out there on the indie scene right now, and we were really let down. Not let down, but all right, cool, you've got some really cool music, but it's every single level, it's the same track, or it's the same boss theme for every single boss, or the games that are on the indie scene that have different, level music will have the same boss theme. So we decided, we made a conscious effort, anytime there's going to be a song, it's going to be a brand new song. So, I ended up writing, I want to say 15 tracks for this. So
17.
17. So even the tutorial has its own tutorial song to it. And I tried to make them all as unique and memorable as possible. And that was a challenge, because I would come up with a really cool idea. Hey, Brooks, check this out, and he was like, he kind of forced me to really change things. So it was really hard to work online. When you're talking to someone online and you have an idea of what they want to do, and you're trying to work on your part. But when we got in the same room together, and that was it. We just had to meet, 3-4 days a week, and we just sit there back to back in the office, and just, he'd be working on levels, I'd be working on music, and in a way they kind of influenced each other, and I think that was really important for this game. That although it's a $3 download. Pretty much, it's I'm going to say a $15 game. You know. So yeah.
All right, so this is a little glimpse into my process of visual art. So you can kind of see how I would build a sprite. So on the top left there, you can see where I started. I have kind of like a cookie cutter of outline of all the different characters that I kind of started with, and I just build on top of that. So you can see I wanted to give her the cropped hair and her little outfit, and then from there I just kind of build on it. Add a little details, some shading there. Then moving over, you can see I kind of tweaked the colors on her hair because I thought it needed to be bluer to match her aesthetic. Started adding more shading in there. Then down at the bottom, you can see I started. Unfortunately, this will be animated, but you can see where so I'd animate individual portions that I wanted to, and then I'd go in and after they were animated and blocked out here in red, I'd go in and put the color on them, and then fill in with the details and make the details match the animations until finally I get to the final sprite. Is it on there? Okay.
Hold on, we're trying to do the animation, so just go and keep on top.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well,
There we go.
There we go. Animated sprites. So there you go. Now you can see. So you can see how
makes all the difference.
I'd start with just like a really simple kind of up-down, because she's a magic user, so she can fly, and I'd start with just the up-down to kind of give her a basic thing, and then I'd go in and animate a little bit at a time, so you can see I moved on to the bangs to get them flowing nicely, and then the back of the hair, and then move down to the bottom of the dress, which really kind of needed its own little poppy thing. So I'd block it out, and then color it in, and then get all the details in and match them up to the motion. So like I said, this was a game on the Xbox Live Indie Games platform, and it was a neat platform because it used C#, which is kind of an offshoot from C, but it's based around, in this case, Microsoft's .NET platform. So XNA was Microsoft's game development framework that was mandatory for working on the Xbox Live Indie games. And it was really nice because it was a framework that was developed by one guy I know is Sean Hargreaves, who is actually really kind of famous in the indie scene for being one of the developers of framework. Oh man, it escapes me. Well, this is Allegro, the Allegro framework,
yeah.
which is a very famous C++ framework that was used by a lot of game developers starting out, years ago. So he moved on to develop this XNA platform, which was just phenomenal. It's like a lot of times when you're starting out in development and you go and try to start a game and just load up your development environment and try to get going, and you're trying to run it and it doesn't do anything because you don't have anything in there. You don't even get a window most of the time. It takes a lot of work just to get the basics of the game going. But XNA was great because you could just download it for free. Microsoft just gave it all out along with Visual Studio, free. Download it, just click run, and the thing would start right up with a window, give you color, and they even had all the tutorials to get you going, drawing sprites and everything. And it was beautiful, just because it was so easy to jump in and do all that stuff.
Yeah, in a way, you're kind of spoiled now.
Yeah, yeah. So moving back to C++ now,
Yeah.
I had to kind of redo all that for myself because I liked the way that was done so much that I kind of tried to recreate it myself. Anyway, so this is a little glimpse of my code in Aeternum's engine, and specifically since we're here talking about shmup development, I just wanted to show off a little bit of my bullet engine. So my bullets are, what I figured out was I looked around for other people that had done, because that's one thing that you really want to do as a developer, is look and see what other people have done and try and crib as much as you can, because a lot of people have done things a lot better, and you can kind of learn what you need to from each of those things and and put it all together how you like to do it. So there's a very famous Japanese developer named Kenta Cho, who some people might be familiar with a game called R Rootage.
Yep.
So that's Kenta Cho. He's into a lot of kind of really experimental stuff as well. But one thing that he did was he developed a bullet platform called Bullet ML, which was a little kind of markup language for describing how bullets should act in a game. So there's scripting for bullets, but it was neat because it's just a XML file that you could describe how bullets move and how much damage they do and how much timing and all that. So you could build patterns out that, intensely beautiful or difficult or however you wanted to script in patterns, just in XML. So I kind of extrapolated on that for my own thing. So you can see, so bullets are just kind of a little structure that just have, position, timing information, and they have a pointer right here to a bullet definition, and the bullet definition would have all the information as to how the bullet would act. So whenever I file a bullet out, it just fills up all the structure with information and then runs through the scripts in the bullet definition as to how it would.
Now would aiming be in there as well?
Yeah, aiming is the direction. So that's the direction it starts. I actually developed kind of a little mini scripting language so that I could, rather than just having absolute directions all the time, I could say, this is an aim bullet, so it would always aim at the player if it shot like that. And then it would extrapolate from there, so I could say aim bullet and then, minus how many degrees or whatever to change the direction, that kind of thing. So one thing that's interesting about the Xbox and working with C# is that memory management is really different than working with C++. So in C++, you're at the bare bones and you're trying to figure out where everything needs to go in memory so that you can try and, you don't shoot yourself in the foot trying to, losing track of things and memory and everything like that. C# is a little different because C# is a garbage collected language, which means that you make whatever you need to, and then as soon as you're done with it, it kind of sits there until the system figures out that it's not needed anymore, and then it gets rid of it itself. So this is kind of my advice is when you're working with something like that, always be profiling. And profiling is what you do is you're looking at how everything gets run as the game runs. So in this case, this little graph here is an example of what my profiling ended up looking like at the end of what I had built. So the idea for me was to we'll get to this later, but there's a technique called pooling, which is where I would instantiate everything up front and then pull from that pool later on without having to make new stuff all the time. So that's my brief of Aeternum and its development. We'll get into a lot more specific details when we move on to the combined presentation. But some quick lessons that I had specifically working on Aeternum was to work incrementally. So you want to start really small and kind of, you're not going to make, like, if you're making big games, you're going to have your dream game. But it's always going to be this big thing in your mind, right? So, everyone that's made a game is going to suggest you don't want to do that right up front. You want to start really small, which is what I try to do with Aeternum. So it looks like a big game, but it's a lot smaller than even I envisioned when I started it. And build up your tools over time, because you're going to learn things, you're going to find things that you're going to use, and just get as much in your toolbox as you can, because you're going to use it all. I also learned that shmups specifically, there's a school of thought in game development where you kind of want to teach people through the game now. Like, that's the best way to do it, most people will say.
Mega Man X.
Yeah, or Mario, even the original Mario. It teaches you as you play, rather than having to go through a lot of difficult stuff. But shmups are just kind of a weird thing. It's very hard to teach them through gameplay, since they come from the arcade background, and they're trying to just kill you and get your money.
Swallow your quarters.
And finally, specifically for Aeternum, you can't please people who aren't willing to learn. So I had a lot of trouble with a lot of people looking at the game and dismissing it right off, just because I picked a weird genre to start with, and it's kind of a niche game, and it was on a niche platform, so it was really small. And people looked at it and dismissed it.
I think one of the things that really got us early on was right after the game came out, like within maybe 15 minutes after it was released on Xbox Live, indie games, a guy had got the demo and recorded himself his very first attempt playing the game, skipped the tutorial, actively skipped the tutorial, and made like the worst like attempt at actually playing the game ever, and just got owned so hard. You guys saw it, like, you know, like it's not that complicated of a game, but the guy just got owned before he even got to the first mini boss, and you know, and uploaded the video like lightning real fast. And of course he had a bunch of followers, so all of a sudden a lot of people got the impression that it was an unplayable game. It was way too hard. And we would see on forums and stuff people talking about like, oh, this game just looks way too hard. It's way too hard. But then it's like, it didn't take that long before people were once seeing it and, you know, and getting through. If you want to take the active time to learn how to play the game by the rules that we put together and by the controls that we've set up for it, you know, it's dialed in. It's, you know, but if you don't want to learn how to do it, you can't really force people to learn how to play a game that's, like I said, so niche like that. So, yeah.
All right, so now we'll hand it over to Trap 15 to talk about Fire Lancer.
You want to switch spots?
Yeah.
So now we have our second presenter. This is Alex Trap 15 Marshall, and he's going to talk to you about his game Fire Lancer, and also the kind of interesting platform that he chose to develop the game. Maybe, Alex, can you talk about a little bit how it came time for you to make a game, and you were like, okay, now I'm going to start programming a game.
Yeah. So actually, that's my first slide. But yeah, it's not a danmaku, but trust me, it's good. So why would I do this? So Brooks mentioned, like, as his last thing, start small. A lot of my older shooting game engines were really over-engineered and like way too big, and were they bit rotted pretty quick, so they didn't work anymore. So I was like, I got a Wonder Swan, a bunch of stuff. I'd like to make something for it. And like everybody makes all these danmaku these days, but nobody makes the classic style shooting game. So that's more my bag. So I wanted to make one, and I love fast bullets. So I gotta make fast bullets. Gotta go fast.
So the guys clue you in, yeah, why Wonder Swan? Wonder Swan is a handheld. Can you talk to a little bit of background on Wonder Swan?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Show us your swan.
Yeah. So this is a Wonder Swan.
Everybody stare in wonder. Ooh.
So yeah. So the Wonder Swan was released by Bandai in like 1999. It was originally monochrome. It uses one AA battery, and the original mono lasts like 20 hours on that one AA. Huh? Bandai. So the actual designer behind it is Gunpei Yokoi, who designed the Game Boy, and the Virtual Boy, and a whole bunch of toys and Game & Watch and all sorts of stuff. Basically, he's a legend. In like 2000, they released a color version that quadruples the RAM and adds color. And then a year after that, they released this version, which is the Swan Crystal, which has a screen that you can actually look at and see things. So why did I pick the Wonder Swan? First off, sexy case design. Second off, before I started this, I got a development kit. So there's a homebrew development kit called the Wonder Witch, which was made in 2000. And it's basically a homebrew development kit for the WonderSwan and was officially sold, and it's got a great SDK and it's really easy to use, which is awesome. So that sort of got me interested in it and got me into poking around on the hardware and figuring stuff out. So it was interesting to look at, and then the whole actual limitations of the hardware were really interesting to me. It's a not too fast processor. The processor is kind of slow, but it's not too slow, is the important part. It's not like a Super Nintendo. It's sufficiently fast, but not like you can do a million things all at the same time. You can't do that. So you have to sort of pare your stuff down in order to get it to run decently. And then for the graphics, it's just 2 really simple tile maps and 128 sprites. So you're not going to put a Danmaku on there. It's just not going to happen. So that's another reasoning behind keeping it to more a classic style game. And then for the colors, it's got a really good color fidelity. Actually, it's not quite as good as the Game Boy Advance in terms of that, but it looks really good, and with proper artists, it can look fantastic. And then most importantly, you can hold it vertically. Woo!
So that means vertical orientation. Instead of playing the game,
Yeah, so normally you would hold it like this, and you'd have your movement pad here and your A and B button. But if you turn it, you got your D-pad over here, and you got 4 buttons over here, and you can do some really interesting things. So moving on, tools. So I make a lot of tools for various consoles because I do a lot of console development on everything. So like 3 years ago or something, I originally made some tools to turn a PCX image into a bunch of tiles and tile data and tile maps and all that. So a PCX file goes in, tile data goes out. You can't explain that. So the tools I just adapted basically from my old stuff, and it just worked. And then for my C compiler, so this is a 16-bit x86 CPU, and there are basically no compilers for it that have been made in the past 20 years. So I'm using a 20-year-old C compiler. So surprisingly, it has an actually really nice interface, but the code it generates is god-awful. It is so bad. So combine that with the not fast CPU, and you end up having to write a whole bunch of stuff in assembly or hack up your C code to make the compiler generate better code, which sucks. But like all of it sucks. Like you don't want to write stuff in assembly. That's not fun. You don't want to fidget with your C code to make the compiler generate better code. It's not fun. Because you have to generate it, and then you have to disassemble it and look at the assembly and see, oh, this is really awful. How can I make this not just the worst thing ever made? So it's a thing. I've gotten used to it. I've sort of got to flow down on it now, but it takes a while. And then for the sound driver, I met a guy on Twitter whose handle is SW. He is really good. His sound driver, he sort of just gave it to me and was like, here, you can use this. And it's easy to use, it's just plug in. And I don't really have to do anything with it, so it just works as far as programming standpoint. So the origins of this project, I started out like super small scope, and like the original idea even like, so the folder that all my stuff is in is still called STG test. So yeah, it originated as a test. The original idea, like I made a few videos and they were just like the player ship shooting, and that was where it started, is just get a player on the screen, get it shooting. And then I added options because options are amazing. So
It's always good to have options.
So like the side helpers that shoot for you, while you shoot. So that was the very first thing I did, was make a player ship that can move around and shoot. And then after that, I added a stationary thing that just shot bullets at you and all that. So it starts out very small, like no long-term goal. It was like, I don't know, I'll make a caravan game or something. And I made some really basic programmer art that, I mean, it works. That's what matters, I think. Yeah, that's the really important thing with getting a project started. You don't need the best art. You just have to get something that works. And you can get an artist later or whatever, but you have to actually get the game going. No artist is going to want to work with you if you have nothing to show them. So you got to have something already showing, like, they understand. I mean, you got bad graphics because you're not a graphics designer. You don't do that. So who cares? Just make something that works. That's what matters. The engine was really awful at the very beginning. There was a lot of hacks to just get stuff to work, because there's a line that's actually cut off, but it says goal-oriented design. It was very much designed from the very beginning to just be, I want to get this done now, fast. I don't care about how the engine looks, which I think is really good to just getting started. You get to get a prototype up, you get to get stuff running. And find me later and ask about Bullreg. It's really awful, and it's probably the worst thing I've ever programmed, but it's really interesting story. So there was a video here, but we don't have YouTube, so oh well. But you get to see like the very simplistic, basic programmer art, but it works. So getting from a test project to an actual, here's a goal, like actual full game project. So I posted those work in progress videos, and then like a week later or something, an artist from the Shmups forum, Touhoucon, asked me like, hey, your project looks pretty cool, you want me to do something for you? And I was like, I mean, people have offered to do stuff for me before and then they never do it, so so I have like, so my hitboxes are actually hit circles, so I was like, can you make me a boss that's like, I don't know, 80 by 80 and sort of circular, because that's what's gonna make sense. So like the next day he shows up and like gives me like the best boss design I've ever seen. So from there I was just like, all right, sure, you can do it. So he did all of the sprite art for all the characters and all the text in HUD and stuff.
Oh, I just wanted to speak to that a little bit more. So when you were finding collaborators, did you just give them a short project to kind of test them, and then they came through, right? Touhoucon came through, and they're like, okay, we can work together. Have you talked with him on the phone, or?
So I did give him that boss project to see if he could do it and if he could do something that I thought was good enough. And I mean, he passed with flying colors. So then we got on Skype and chatted and did like jammed out together. Like one day we just like sat down and we're on like a Skype screen share for like 14 hours just working on it, and it was a shitload of fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, just jamming out for like 14 hours with a great friend who's working along with it at the same time as you. It's good stuff.
I find the back and forth with people who, like, even though I was doing code and Jesse was doing music, like, working in the same room was great because we could just...
Motivation, man.
Yeah,
like,
we could throw things back and forth off each other. It's like, you know, I'd show him what I was doing, and then he'd show me what he was doing, and I'd say, oh, well, that music's really cool. I can kind of alter what I'm doing this way to match it. And then I'd write some code, and he'd say, that's really cool. I'll change the music up to match that. And we just kind of work in that flow back and forth until we reached a kind of cool equilibrium how things were made.
Yeah, so after I got the a bunch of the graphics. I started sort of working out the engine more. I got rid of bullrag. I fixed a whole bunch of stuff up, added proper like stage layout stuff, just a lot of reworking. And then I actually hadn't run it on the actual hardware for a very long time, so I was just running it in emulators, and it worked fine and fast. And then I ran it on hardware, and it was like half speed like the entire time, which is disheartening. So I spent a couple weeks optimizing the engine and my memory usage to get it to run pretty decent. It still has slowdown, and I'm still optimizing more to keep getting rid of it, but it's...
Cat cave slowdown.
Actually, so I have a... it's actually not in this demo, but I have like gimmick modes built in. I have a cave mode that adds like tons of slowdown, just like spews bullets everywhere and they're really slow. And like killing things cancels all the bullets into numbers. Just random numbers. And then I've also got a Euro gimmick mode that has like inertia and shitloads of HP, and all the bullets really fast, and it's just impossible. But yeah, I have fun. So after I did a whole bunch of stuff, I looked into getting music people. So Patoing knows a bunch of the indie people. Like, I'm not really in the indie scene much, so I don't know any of these people. But he's into it, so he knows a guy named Takashi Kawano, who's really big into sort of bridging the East and West chiptune scenes. And he found SW for me, and he's the guy who made the sound driver. And he's also made a bunch of the music so far. Even though when we first talked to him, he was like, oh, I'm just a oboe player and engineer. I don't make music. I can't make music. So it was like, all right. And then he comes and gives me a game over theme that just blows my socks off. It's amazing.
Should we try playing it?
It's going to sound awful. It's just, it won't work.
Come and try the demo in the gaming hall to hear this legendary game over theme. So good.
Yeah, it's surprisingly really good, but it's also like a minute long, which is really awful for a game over theme. So I had to make it
It's not
so
like
you...
the classic game over, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it was shorter, but I kind of don't want to tell them to make it shorter because it's so good. So I made it so that the game over theme just doesn't time out, so you have to press a button and leave it, so you can just keep listening to it. Because it's too good, you can't
Die on
skip it.
purpose just so you can...
Yeah.
I did that last night.
Well, actually, I have I added a sound
I didn't do
test
it on
because
Just because you wanted to...
well, I added a sound test at like the very beginning because I like sound tests in games,
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
I like to be able to just be like, all right, I'm gonna plug in this game, just jam out to the music. So yeah, there's a sound test in there. So yeah, after we got sound people on board, I did a lot more enemy like engine optimization, and I ended up making. So what Brooks is mentioning about the like scripting bullets or whatever. So all my bullets are really dead simple. They don't move. Like they just fire in a straight path, and that's all they do. So it's really simple. But actually making interesting patterns out of that requires you to have an interesting way to make the enemies actually scripted. So I added a bytecode. So actually, I don't know how you actually did all of your scripting, but I actually found a assembly framework online, and I added a code generator for it. So it actually, like, I write my enemy patterns in an assembly language and compile that into a bytecode, and it runs like that. Obviously, it's a bit more higher level than most assemblies. It's like add to this register or whatever, and then fire this bullet. So I use that for all my enemy patterns, and it works out really well. You can do some pretty interesting things, and it's a lot smaller and simpler than actually writing it in code, which is important. So I actually am very constantly running out of code space, which is terrifying. You sort of just have to like go into panic mode and start ripping stuff out or making stuff simpler because it doesn't fit. You can't run it anymore. So that was a big reason to make this bytecode, is because then I don't have to create code for it. I just write out this really small bytecode and it works. Did you have a question?
Yeah. Do you ever think about just rewriting the whole thing from scratch?
Every day of my life.
That was. Do you think about rewriting the code?
Yeah. So very often, whenever I run into an issue that takes me a while to figure out or is a significant problem, I sort of get this idea in the back of my head, maybe I should just rewrite the whole thing. And then I'm like, no, I want to get this done. I don't want to keep rewriting it for a million years.
I actually fell into the trap a couple times. So there's like 10 or so folders of just restarts. Some of them didn't get that far, thankfully. But eventually I just said, okay, I have to get this thing done. I'm just, whatever happens, I'm just building on this thing until it's done.
So who asked that question? So I got a copy of Aeternum for you. Yeah, because we like audience participation.
Aeternum.
Yeah, that was a good question. So where are we at now? There's only one stage still, although it's like 4 minutes long, so it's going to be broken out in like 2 or 3 stages eventually. The background scroll is actually taken from Thunder Dragon 1 and sort of just cleaned up because we didn't have time to work on a background yet. The boss is pretty temporary. I mean, the sprite is still amazing, but I can't come up with anything interesting to do with it, so I'm going to have him like re-engineer it, I guess. And the bullet patterns for the boss are pretty not great, so those are going to be redone too. I'm planning 2 freeware demos that'll be downloadable as WonderSwan ROM images that you can just use in an emulator, or also as a soft file. So on the Wonder Witch, you can actually load in essentially an entire WonderSwan program that the loader calls soft, so software. So you can run it on your real thing through the Wonder Witch.
On your hardware?
Yeah, on actual hardware, so you can experience all the slowdown. So yeah, 2 freeware demos are planned. I don't know when the first one's going to come out. It's going to be probably just 1 stage, and then the second stage is going to. The second demo is going to be 2 stages. So I'm actually planning on doing branching paths a la Darius. So the second demos can be 1 stage and then branched selection. Question?
So what problem you had with WonderSwan? Did you ever think about maybe going to some other platform or something that had more power?
I have.
So the question
yeah.
is, with all the problems of programming, did you want to switch hardware, like from the WonderSwan to something else, like just PC-based or something like that, right?
Yeah, a few times, but I have a very strange fascination with this console, so I don't think I would ever actually abandon it. But I actually do have a sort of plan in the back of my head to, when I do the final release, to release a Saturn version as well, that you'd play with like mod chip Saturn or whatever.
Oh.
He caught the foul ball. Actually, home run.
We'll do Q&A after this presentation's done for the last one.
Yeah. So I have thought about it, but I don't intend to, and maybe there'll be a Saturn version, maybe there'll be a PC version. I actually did make a PC version of it as a test, and it was surprisingly easy to port, so theoretically I could port it just about anywhere.
Got one more question.
Have you ever thought about programming on the Unity engine?
Nope. I'm all about the low level, like close to the hardware, just C. So yeah, this is all programmed in pretty much just C. There's a bunch of assembly because the compiler is ass, but it's mostly just C. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of C++ or C# or Java or whatever. So no, I haven't really been interested in Unity.
You like Java,
Right? I don't get it. I mean, I get C#, but Java? I don't get it. So here was also supposed to be a YouTube video, but you can see there's actually good graphics now. And there's an HUD and everything's all shiny and nice. So yeah, there's a current build playable here. It'll be playable for about an hour after this presentation down in the game room. And maybe some other points during the con. I don't know when, but eventually. There's news and information at this URL, firelancer.ws. It's updated not very often, but I want to update it more. So, I don't know. And so, we're Onigiri Keikaku. It's me, Toying, SW, and Tappy. And that's it.
Do we still have that other presentation? Or do you want to this? Okay, we're just going to play one more.
Yeah, so now we have kind of a joint presentation that we concocted where we've just got a few topics that Trav and I are both going to kind of talk about because we have a lot that we do differently as far as development goes, and we have a lot that we do the same, and we just thought that would be interesting to kind of compare and contrast between our styles.
Okay, you're Trap 15 and I'm a nobody. So,
Okay, so different tools. So in my case, since I was working for Xbox Live Indie Games, I had to use Visual Studio. But that's great because Visual Studio, I think, is one of the best compilers out there. Like, it's got all the tools you're going to need. It's basically rock solid most of the time. It's hard to find a bug in it. And
Yeah, I envy you. My compiler is so bad.
Yeah.
It's awful.
yeah, so I was using the latest, greatest stuff out of Microsoft. And
Yeah, you get a compiler from 2015.
Yeah.
I get a compiler from 1995.
Okay, I'm gonna move fast because we have about 5 or 10 minutes left because we want to ask questions. So I'm gonna fire through you guys.
fast bullets.
So my philosophy, I kind of pointed out earlier, was that I kind of like, I liked the contrasting visual style of HD stuff with pixel art. But also that kind of plays into my philosophy of game development, is that I like to use modern hardware and all its capabilities because it's so fast and you've got all this RAM and everything that you can do, and try and use that to make older style looking stuff interesting in ways that you can't do with old hardware.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely different mindset, but I actually like forcing my stuff to work on old stuff. As probably my favorite programmer once said, I like doing the impossible with older hardware and pushing it to the limits.
Tips for newcomers.
Newcomers, start small, as small as you can go. Whatever you're thinking, it's too big.
Absolutely. Just start at literally nothing but a firing player ship and move from there.
And even after that, you got to cut stuff out because you're going to be moving along, and as you're going, you're going to be adding stuff, and that's still too much. You just got to keep going, keep it lean as much as you can.
As an anecdote, I actually had like full option formations like Battle Garriga, like there was like 6 of them, and now there's just wide and forward because it just doesn't work. You need to cut stuff all the time.
So that plays in, and also, so we get down to my strengths and weaknesses, is know what you can do and what you're going to need other people to help you with. So that's where I came up with, I knew what I could do as far as graphics would get me by, so I could do that myself and find someone else to do the things that shore up your weaknesses.
Yeah, I'm basically only a programmer and designer. I can't make graphics, I can't make music. I'm not going to try because it doesn't work. And regarding learn your maths, yes, absolutely learn your maths. Except depending on your platform, you might have to do some really weird math. instead of cool things like linear algebra and calculus.
Yeah, the cooler you're going to get, the harder math you're going to need. So if you're just doing like a 2D game, you can get by with your basic algebra because that'll let you move things around. But if you want to get up into like 3D stuff, you've got to learn all your linear algebra because you've got to get into matrices to move things around in 3D space. And eventually, you advance to get into calculus because if you get into pixel shaders or vertex shaders to do like really interesting graphic stuff, you're going to need to learn calculus because you've got to transform some functions to make them work through shaders.
What's that for Creaky Lantern?
Okay, so me and Jesse are Creaky Lantern. You can find it. So you've seen Aeternum. Now, since I mentioned it came out on the Xbox a couple years ago, and then on PC. So finally, for this, we printed up some physical copies that we'll have for sale if you're interested in purchasing one. $10 for an actual CD with an actual game on it, DRM free.
Make copies, give them to your friends.
And now,
Copy that floppy.
as of yesterday morning, the game is on Steam Greenlight. So if you like the game and you want to get it on Steam, the easy way, we'd appreciate it if you could go to our website, eternumgame.com, and find it and go to the Greenlight page and look for it. So next up, we've also got Glory Gunner, which is our next project, which is more of a game akin to what Trap's doing. So it's
pretty
vertical.
sick.
Yeah.
I tried it out. It's
If
pretty
you
sick.
when you find us in the demo room, I can show off the current demo.
Come to the gaming hall, and we'll have demos of these games right afterwards.
Yeah, and so next for us is we have like 2 or 3 months of who knows what's actually going to happen, and then hopefully a demo comes out sometime close after that, and then another demo a few months down the road, and then like 2 years, and then maybe the game comes out. Who knows?
Okay, guys, now we have time for some questions. So let's go ahead and get you in the back over here.
What was the hardest part in coding
What was the hardest part in coding
Eternum?
Eternal?
Probably dealing with the memory issues because it's a really interesting problem getting things to work, especially on the Xbox since it is a garbage collected language, C#, which means that it leaves stuff laying around and it builds up until it reaches a threshold and then it clears it all out. The problem is when that happens,
All that stuttering.
yeah, it stutters. Like you lock the game up for like a good couple seconds, and that's terrible, especially in a game where you want precision moving and stuff. So I had to do a lot of working around that to get that to either minimize it as much as possible, especially in something where you've got 1,000 bullets in the works. You've got to figure out ways to make it so that that doesn't happen, and then hide what you can't get rid of.
Okay, more questions. Yes, you.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
How much programming background, what kind of programming background do you guys have before you start your projects? And also, do you guys have jobs on the side, or when do you guys have programming projects?
Programming experience before you started, and also what do you guys do for your day job?
All right, so I started programming, like 14 years ago, and I started programming in C like 10 years ago, and I would say I'm basically a C master. But you probably don't need to be that adept to make something for not an embedded machine. And for my day job, I am an embedded programmer, so I guess it sort of makes sense.
So I started programming probably about 15 years ago, doing other stuff. Mostly, I did hardware automation, so ladder logic for PLCs, which means moving actual machines for production, that kind of thing. I did that. I actually have a degree in computer science from SDSU, so that helped quite a bit because you learn a lot about engineering as a process to actually get things done. So that was nice. And for my day job, I'm kind of an independent web developer. So applications, that kind of thing.
And the gentleman over here, what's your question?
So you guys were talking about the importance of working incrementally and putting out prototypes, but how do you find the balance between like doing the increments and then also
and then so the balance between incrementally building and putting out stuff fast and versus building something that's easily expanded. What's the top?
So let me rephrase it. So remember you were talking about you got to put something in. It doesn't have to be big, just but get it out. And then when you start like, okay, now I'm going to put the game together and start refining it, like adding to shift to go, like adding graphics, adding music. Is that
kind
right?
of like
No, I get the question. It's more like when do you like do things small and when do you make big jumps, right?
or it's kind of like say you want to build something for a soon deadline. Like how do you find the balance of putting together stuff with like duct tape versus like something that
okay.
could be built?
So I can actually attest to that because I did that. So like 2 weeks ago, I was like, all right, this is not in the greatest shape right now. I need to get this done for the demo this weekend. So I sort of just dropped everything I was planning on doing and just hammered out, like, stage needs to have these specific things. I need to add these bookkeeping information so I can actually get data. I need to strip out this stuff that I don't want the people to touch. Because I don't want people to like keep erasing people's saves or whatever, and to like plop on the Touhoucon demo thing. But yeah, like as soon as I had deadline, it was instantly go into finishing the product and then maybe go back to the project as a whole.
Okay, we've got 1 minute, so I'm going to pass it on to Brooks.
Yeah. Well, so for me, that actually kind of plays into the earlier question as to what was the hardest aspect. So for me, developing the bullet engine was kind of something that I engineered from the outset to be like lean and mean to really make it so that I wouldn't have those problems with memory, that kind of thing. And then after I had done that, I moved on to actually doing the stage layouts and everything and getting that to move around. Work well to actually run, full 60 frames per second all the time, versus moving on to things that I knew I could afford to kind of let slide.
So, like I said, go down to the gaming hall. You can try Fire Lancer and Aeternum and demo this all throughout the gaming hall, but come especially right now, so we'll get set up and we'll have Toho Ludic Theater so you can watch the Bullet Hell. Anyways, I'd like to give you guys the opportunity to give a hand to Brooks Bishop, Alex Marshall, and Jesse Bishop for coming down to give you a real, I think it was a lot more than a glimpse into indie development. So hopefully this inspires you to make your own independent games.
And remember, check out Creaky Lantern on Steam, because we would really love to get on that platform and get things moving forward and get the Glory Gunner out as soon as possible.
Yeah, we need votes to have it on Steam Greenlight. Get Greenlight. Again, I'm Frenetic from STG Weekly. Please watch our YouTube show, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for all the people that asked questions. That was awesome.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I was worried about getting too tough.
No, I think people love your
I had a quick question. So what is your background?
I've been writing pretty much using like Fantasy. Thanks for the question, by the way. I've been writing like music in like Fast Track and stuff like that since like the 90s. And like basically working for others. I've always been forming music and stuff, but I actually didn't focus on actually creating like streamlined mixes my first year. But yeah, I basically had to figure out how to create like a chip tune and create a modern music right away. So I use Fruity Loops pretty much.
For some reason, I didn't hear. Were you talking earlier?
Because he came in late.
Yeah.
He's with the German.
Oh, you guys are from San Diego?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And you guys were invited out here?
Yeah. When you're invited up here to
Do you guys